Hello everyone, Prowl here, and I have an important Diablo IV guide video here for you that will help you decide which of the 5 new classes you should choose based on how you want to play and what you believe it is you may enjoy. To do this, we are going to go over some strengths and weaknesses of the classes, their playstyles, and what we know so far about how much skill it will take to do well with the class. I'm going to keep things pretty general about the classes at first, and then dive into some specific skill categories for you to think about when you're thinking of making the class. And with that, we will start with the Barbarian. Now, the Barbarian is a melee class requiring it to be up close and personal with enemies. This means that you're usually going to be in harm's way and take a lot of damage. To stay alive, the Barb will rely on numerous skills to stun its enemies, knock them back, or to get out of harm's way temporarily before moving back and to start fighting again. You will also have several other abilities and skills that will help you survive. Things like Fortify, damage reduction, and barrier. Now, when building up a Barbarian early in the game, you're probably going to be focused a lot on damage, as you'll feel like you aren't killing enemies fast enough. But as you will with most classes, the later on in the game you get, you're going to realize more and more that having ways to mitigate damage and stay alive is going to be extremely important. In terms of player skill, finding some good combos of skills and abilities / gear to give you barrier shields, damage reduction, or fortify will be important in being successful, especially against higher end elites that proc damage on hit or have big attacks that are near impossible to dodge, since you need to be so close to them to do damage yourself. Now, as far as the skills go, there are many fun builds, and the Barbarian will likely only get more fun for you the higher you level, as your damage and your different effects from your abilities and gear really begin to stack up how much damage you can do. I do plan on doing more in-depth guides on all the classes individually, but generally speaking, you are going to look into builds based around bleeding, whirlwind, or some area-based attack with a stun or knockdown effect to it. You'll likely end up taking one or more shouts that you will pick based on what feels most comfortable with your main skill you're building around and your playstyle, and probably something to assist you with getting out of sticky situations, such as leap. The Barb may be the class for you if you enjoy close-up combat, can keep a close eye on your health, and keep up with mixing in your shouts to help give you that edge in battle. Next, let's talk about the Necromancer, a class near and dear to my heart, and likely the class that I'm going to be playing at launch of Diablo IV, although maybe not in the traditional way. The Necromancer can be a fairly easy class to play when you play it as designed. You are able to summon a mix of numerous minions, some focused around melee damage, some focused around magic damage, and a golem as well. Without any major gear improvements, which you will end up getting as you play through the game, you can summon 4 skeletal warriors, 3 skeletal mages, and a golem. There are numerous options for these summons to cater them to your playstyle. The skeletons do take up a hotbar slot, as does the golem, leaving you with 4 skills you can choose to use along with them, unless you decide to not use your summons, which you can receive a bonus for not using them and have all 6 hotbar slots available for skills that you specialize in. Also to note, you do not have to control your summons, they just simply go to the nearest bad guy and start whacking away. You don't have to really manage them at all, other than keeping them alive. The summons can help slow the game down for you, making the Necromancer a great beginner option. You personally end up needing to do less, especially in the early game, as your skeletons and golems will attract a lot of the enemy attention, allowing you to take the time to play around with and learn how to use your skills. Also, these skills can be pretty powerful, allowing you to dish out a decent amount of damage with skills based around blood, bone, corruption, and shadow magic. While going with the basic minion build can make life easy early on, it's still unknown how well these minions will do later in the game, as elites and bosses do more damage. There are a number of different skills and passives to make your minions stronger, not to mention gear and paragon boards, so if you are going minions, you'll want to keep this in mind as you progress through the game. You can also decide, though, to not go minions at all. I'll have a video out soon on a no summons Necromancer build that I'm working on, and you can decide to go with many different skills that give you extra health, heal you, or do large amounts of damage. So there is a lot of diversity in the Necromancer, and it can be a more complex class if you decide to play it that way. So in the end, if you want a good beginner class that can adapt to be more complex and quite powerful once you really learn what you're doing in Diablo IV, the Necromancer may just be the class for you. Now, next up is the Sorcerer. This class can be extremely powerful, and at least at the moment, they may just be the most powerful class in the game. The Sorcerer can feel pretty easy in the early game as you melt away enemies with your hard-hitting spells, although it can require a little bit of watching your health bar and ensuring that you have ways to get yourself out of sticky situations if your health starts to drop, because the Sorcerer is a more squishy class, having lower armor and health than the other classes do. Luckily though, there are skills you can specialize in that make you take less damage, or none at all, and a number of skills that have crowd control effects that will help slow or stun your enemies completely. Now, as far as these skills are concerned, you have the 3 elements to play around with: fire, ice, and electricity. Each element will have a variety of skills intended for killing large groups of enemies or focusing more on single target damage, although some will do this better than others. Most players will decide to specialize in one specific element. That way you can really maximize your character's potential between stats increases from gear and the Paragon board to get the most damage from your character. But I have also heard of some benefits of mixing these different elements together to get some really good crossplay between them. As the game is released and out for a while, I imagine you'll have a lot of people experimenting with this and find some really interesting ways to play the Sorcerer, which will likely make it a class that is fun to play through numerous times. The Sorcerer has some excellent escape skills as well: an ice shield that absorbs a large amount of incoming damage, a fire shield that doesn't quite last as long, but you take 0 damage while you have it up, and a teleport ability that can quickly whisk you out of harm's way so you can sort of recollect yourself or heal up before jumping back into battle. So to summarize the Sorcerer for you, very strong class, requires a bit of attention to your health bar to keep alive, but once you master the Sorcerer and get good with putting together some powerful combos and surviving trouble, this class is an extremely powerful choice. Now, I'd like to break for a moment to ask you, if you're enjoying this video, please click the like button. If you want to see more great videos like this, subscribe to the channel. If you really want to help me grow the channel to cross that 1,000 subscriber mark, comment what class you plan on playing down below and why, because your comments actually help get the video seen by a lot more people. Now, let's talk about the next class on our list, the Rogue, who can dish out a ton of damage and be a lot of fun to play, but does require much more skill to do so, at least compared to the other classes. The Rogue is a very interesting and fun class to play if you have the skill to pull it off. To be fair, the skill floor isn't extremely high, but just compared to the other classes, the Rogue is definitely the hardest to master out of them. You have options for ranged attack, melee attack, traps, movement, damage mitigation, and weapon imbuements to enhance your subsequent attacks. This is a lot of variety. It really gives you many choices you will need to make with the Rogue. Deciding what to specialize in can be a little difficult, but also very fun if you really dive into what is possible. I personally found when playing the Rogue that finding a good combination of skills to use in a particular order was helpful in causing a lot of upfront damage to big packs of enemies or elites, and you also end up using a number of the Rogue's abilities to dart into and out of battle, which is needed because a lot of your strongest skills will require some level of close range damage, and the Rogue can't tank damage as well as some of the other classes can. Now, the Rogue is a class that I think over the first several months of this game, people will keep finding new and inventive ways to come up with some very interesting builds, and using build guides for this class may not be a bad idea for the inexperienced player. While if you fancy more of a challenge, you can probably figure out some interesting, unique skill combos that work very well, which of course always feels gratifying to do. I should also note that in terms of damage compared to other classes, the Rogue may be up there at the top. It does take a bit more work to do massive amounts of damage like the Sorcerer does, but if you master your skills and set up this class correctly, you will find that dicing through enemies quickly is actually quite easy. I should also note that one big factor of playing a game like Diablo is how quickly you can clear dungeons and other areas of the game for purposes of farming loot. Speed to travel and clear is important here to be the best at farming the loot, and the Rogue may just be the best at that with its number of movement skills combined with the damage that it can put out. So if you're going the long haul to level 100 and want to get some of the best gear in the game, the Rogue may get you there before other classes do. So to sum things up here, the Rogue may not be the best for people new to ARPG games or Diablo, but if you're an experienced player or someone looking for a challenge with a nice reward of a strong and fun class to play, the Rogue may just be the class for you. Last, and sadly maybe least, is the Druid. Well, maybe only the least for now anyways. The Druid has potential to be a potent mix of a Barbarian, Sorcerer, and Necromancer, but at the time of this recording, this has not yet been seen. Now, I don't want to scare you off the Druid too much. Blizzard has been making adjustments to make the class better, and at the point of this recording, we have only played the Druid up through level 25, which hasn't even unlocked any of its class-specific traits yet. So I mentioned 3 classes in reference to the Druid, and what I meant by that is more of the like wide array of skills that the Druid has. You can change form into a wolf or bear, relying heavily on melee damage. You can cast nature spells having to do with storms and earthquakes to damage your enemies from range, and you can summon in different animals to aid you in battle. Ultimately, the Druid is intended to be pretty tanky, being able to soak up some damage, and through a combination of his different skills, also be able to dish out a solid amount of damage as well. Now, this is just a hunch I have here, and you may be able to learn more about the Druid by watching some videos from people who played them extensively during the betas, but it seems like what may end up making a Druid very powerful is its use of different skills and forms to really take advantage of certain abilities that all characters in the game have, like Overpower, Fortify, critical hits, vulnerable, etc. While all classes have different ways to do this, I wonder if maybe the Druid could have some of the more easily attainable and better ways of doing this, allowing it to ramp up damage very high as you get into the mid and late game, while also having a good amount of survivability against elites and bosses as well. So really my advice here would be, if you enjoy playing the underdog class, the one that generally people stay away from, and you want to take on that challenge of proving everyone wrong, finding some viable builds, and you thrive off of that sort of challenge, then Druid is definitely the way to go. Otherwise, one of the other 4 classes are a little more well defined at this point, and you can go in knowing more of what to expect. So now I'm curious, which class do you plan on picking for Diablo 4 launch? What about for Season 1? Why are you picking that class? And what tips do you have for people that are still trying to figure out what to play? Comment down below and please let me know. So if you're looking for a great Diablo 4 community to join, check out my Discord link below to join my Discord channel. I am a full-time video creator. I will be streaming Diablo 4 daily post-launch on this channel, so be sure to subscribe and turn on that notification bell so you're notified of new videos and when I go live. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in Sanctuary.